Hello DP community. If you're the type of person who enjoys exploring scaled down worlds and imagining how those spaces would look and thrive, I think you'll enjoy today's vlog. We're going to peek inside some familiar Starship models and give careful, creative thought to life on the other side of the hull, behind the fake miniature windows. The USS Phobos is a Loknar-class frigate. She's possibly one of the most beloved non-canon starships, owing to her distinctive twin deflector dish features and a catamaran-inspired secondary hull. It is this latter characteristic that has fascinated the most technical-obsessed fans, because this type of hull design raises some obvious questions about the layout of engineering and the ship's propulsion systems. Indeed, roughly a decade ago, a sci-fi enthusiast named Basil set out to visualize those interiors with shipyard precision. DP's relationship with the USS Phobos started almost 2 years ago. Like many of you, I was immediately charmed by her sleek, sports car-like profile. My own fascination with the interiors also fell on the secondary hull, but had nothing to do with engineering per se. You see, I was first curious about the arboretums. As originally designed and released by Kevin Riley, the USS Phobos was fitted with twin arboretums, one in the starboard hull and a mirror image copy in the port hull. I suspect the reason we ended up with an arboretum at all had more to do with reverence to the motion picture Enterprise refit than to logical Starship design. My issue was trying to understand why precious recreational space would be wasted on a duplicate facility. Crew need to relax and play. They need a variety of recreational spaces, and the Loknar-class doesn't seem to have much. Thus, it was decided early on that DP's version of the Phobos would have to replace one of those rooms. Now, I want to divert our story a bit because I did not give myself the green light for such major reconstruction until first considering if it was patently necessary. Maybe there were other recreational facilities in the primary hull, the saucer section. Let's visit the Enterprise refit for a moment. When I think of Starship recreation, the first interior space that comes to my mind is the expanded deck recreation lounge. Beginning with the motion picture, its location is well known. It's right here. We never see the lounge in the later films, but there is an implicit assumption among modelers that the lounge surely occupies the same section of the Enterprise A. Now, interestingly, the Phobos hints very strongly against the use of leisure and habitat interiors along its rear saucer edge because there are no windows here. Instead, the primary hull has these prominent bits, which could be expanded deck spaces. But if I'm being totally honest, it's a bit of a stretch. That single deck of windows is odd. Consequently, I was never able to convince myself that the USS Phobos does have a similar recreation deck situated in one of these sections. What do you think? What kind of interior space would you design in each of these elevated sections? Are they conference rooms? VIP quarters, perhaps? If you do have some ideas, write down some notes because I'll be throwing a second design question at you a bit later. Jump ahead several days, and the decision was made to replace the portside arboretum with a lounge suite. Its official name is the Engineering Lounge, as it's clearly located in a part of the ship we would associate with the engineering crew and systems. The crew, however, refer to it as the E-Lounge. Let's get on board and check it out. I don't know about you, but when I did my first camera walkthrough of the E-Lounge, I was surprised at how small it is. It appears more spacious and deep when viewed from outside the Starship, perhaps because the ship itself is so relatively massive. Now granted, as a lounge room, it is supposed to be intimate, cozy, and warm, and I decorated and populated it that way. But don't you feel this interior space is just too small for an arboretum? To help drive my point, let's return to the Starship Enterprise. Like the recreation deck we saw earlier, this is an updated interior I constructed specifically for the Enterprise A. It has some elements consistent with the original interior, like a pond, trees, benches, and path, but the gazebo is new. Yes, a gazebo. This here is some legitimate botanical space. Think about it. If several people were present in this room, one could grab a bench and still enjoy a bit of privacy and solitude. Now try to imagine what an arboretum would look and feel like back on the USS Phobos. Where the heck are you going to put a pond, a walking path, and some benches? What you'll have really is a garden room and, let's say, a fountain with not much space for people. Forget about strolling around. Okay, so let's assume that most of us are now in agreement. This section of the secondary hull is not a good home for an arboretum. With that out of the way, we now have full license to be creative, and here's your chance to influence a future rebuild of the USS Phobos. What kind of living space do you think makes the most sense here? This is a list of 6 early ideas to help start the discussion. Conference room, exercise room, library, a medical lab or sick bay, a theater, transporter room. At the start of today's vlog, I made reference to the question of how engineering might work on a starship with a catamaran-like hull. While developing the shuttle bay interiors for the USS Phobos, I too was thinking about this, and I was always imagining that this interior section is part of engineering. I imagine that this is one of the junctions used by the crew to access the port and starboard hulls. And that elevated room in the background, many of you might be thinking it's an observation room or the shuttle bay control room. But in my mind, it's also main engineering. Look closely and you'll see 2 turbolifts which provide quick access to the port and starboard hulls. To those of us who create physical or virtual spaces, happy modeling. And to those of us who imagine and dream such spaces, happy exploring. Until next time, this is Antimatter.